Thanks for listening. This is Brian Hurley from Business Performance Improvement. The podcast Lean Six Sigma Bursts are short lessons, comments, Q&A, and insights. If you have a question, send your question through the Anchor app, and we might feature you on a future episode. Or contact me at biz-pi.com. There was a question that came up in a forum I was following. The question was, why is 30 the golden standard for statistical sampling of a population? Why not 32 or 36, in other words? Here is my response. I'll read off my response here and then I'll add some comments. I believe it comes from the idea that many data sets fit a normal distribution, which isn't exactly true, but when you don't know what the distribution might be, a good guess would be to start with the normality assumption. When you have small samples, you should estimate the normal distribution with something called the t-distribution. The t-distribution applies a correction factor on your confidence interval, or basically your estimate of the variation, until your sample size gets to an acceptable level, and I put acceptable in quotes. When you have small samples, you don't have sufficient data to observe all the extreme values of your distribution yet, so the correction factor attempts to adjust for that. So the t-distribution table looks like the following, and I attached a picture of the t-distribution summary table that I'll post a link to as well. For a large sample, basically up to infinity number of data points through each column, so you start off going from sample of 1, sample of 2, 5, 10, 15, 20. The correction factor for each additional sample seems to get smaller and smaller and gets closer and closer to a common number. Therefore, after you hit about 30 samples, any additional knowledge you'll gain from adding new data points or additional samples, it'll start to approach diminishing returns. So the increasing knowledge about your data will be much greater when you go from 15 to 20 samples versus when you're going from 35 to 40 samples. So therefore, there really isn't any magic to 30 compared to like 25 or 31 or 33, but it is a good round number to use. It's also, in my experience, that I see when I do a histogram of a data, usually about 30 data points gives me a pretty good picture of what that looks like. So it allows me to really understand the underlying distribution of the data. When I'm dealing with only 15 or 20 data points, it's hard to pick up the picture. And oftentimes, if I do some kind of distribution fitting, there's not enough samples for it to reject. And so everything looks like it's a good fit for all distributions till I hit about 30 samples or so. But if your data is not normal, you may need more samples than 30, or you may need less than that. So it's going to vary a little bit. So this, again, assumes the data is normal. And if you cannot get at least 30 data points, well, then try to get as many as you can. So when I worked in aerospace, we would only get like 5 prototypes to look at and get data on. And so we did the best we can with the sample of 5, but we'd have to apply this t-distribution correction factor to increase the actual standard deviation we got. So for example, if our standard deviation was 2.5, the correction factor would say, well, if you only did 5 samples, you might need to multiply that by another 20% or 30% or 50% on top of that. Until you get up to 30 samples, then you don't have to apply that extra additional correction factor to it. So I like to tell classes I work with that I'll take 2 data points because that's better than 1. And if I can get 5 data points, well, that's a lot better than 3. And 15 is better than 10, and 25 is better than just 20. So you try to get as much data as you can. But if you are short the number of data points you'd like to have, just know that there may be a correction factor to apply to it. But more data is better than none. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks. Want to better organize your work area or bring 5S methods into your organization? Check out the 5S guide from Creative Safety Supply. You also get 3 free bonuses. Bonus number 1, free 5S poster. Bonus number 2, free 5S PowerPoint. And bonus number 3, free 5S audit card. Go to lean6sigmaforgood.com/5S for the free downloads. They also provide floor tape markings, labels, signs, foam tool organizers, red tags, label printers, and other organization tools. Make sure you use code BPI at checkout to save 10%.